brother mocked me when my boyfriend cheated, calling me pathetic. Last week, his fiancée found the texts he'd been sending her best friend, and he came begging for a place to stay. My brother had always taken pleasure in pointing out my failures, treating my pain as entertainment for his massive ego. When my boyfriend of 3 years cheated on me last summer, I was devastated beyond words. We had been planning our future together, looking at apartments, discussing marriage, even picking out names for our future children. Then I discovered he'd been sleeping with his coworker for months. My world collapsed overnight, and I needed my family's support more than ever. Instead, my brother turned my heartbreak into his personal comedy show. While my parents and friends supported me, he chose a different approach entirely. Maybe if you weren't so boring in bed, he wouldn't have looked elsewhere, he said during our family dinner, smirking while I fought back tears. My parents immediately scolded him, but the damage was done. In the weeks that followed, he'd send me links to dating advice articles with notes like, "Thought you could use this, since you clearly don't know how relationships work." When I finally broke down during a family gathering, admitting how betrayed I felt, my brother rolled his eyes and called me pathetic in front of everyone. According to him, I was making a scene of myself and needed to get over it already. His fiancée, who I'd always gotten along with, seemed uncomfortable with his behavior but never stood up to him directly. They were the perfect couple, according to my brother, engaged after a fiery romance, moving into their dream home and planning an extravagant wedding for the fall. He never missed an opportunity to compare our relationships, putting himself as the relationship expert while I was the failed experiment. "This is why I found someone with actual loyalty," he'd say, putting his arm around his fiancée while looking at me with pity. "You should learn to spot the red flags I would have seen from day one." Then came the phone call that changed everything. It was a Tuesday night and I was unwinding after work when my phone lit up with my brother's name. Something that rarely brought good news. Curiosity got the better of me, and I answered. "I need a place to stay," he said, his voice lacking its usual arrogance. "Just for a few days." When I asked what happened, the story tumbled out. His fiancée had borrowed his phone to call her mom since hers was dead. A text notification popped up with a message that was impossible to ignore, a very explicit one from her best friend. Scrolling through his messages revealed months of flirtatious exchanges, secret meetups, and photo exchanges that left nothing to the imagination. His fiancée had immediately kicked him out, called off the wedding, and told their entire social circle about his betrayal. "I know we've had our differences," he said, his voice suddenly humble, "but you know what it's like to make relationship mistakes. I figured you'd understand." I let the silence hang between us for a moment as the irony fully sank in. This was the same brother who had mocked my pain when I was at my worst. "Actually," I finally replied, "I understand completely. I understand what it's like when someone you trusted betrays you and then expects sympathy they never gave. The hotels downtown have great weekly rates." I hung up while he was still protesting, blocked his number, and poured myself a glass of wine. Sometimes karma doesn't need your help. It just needs you to get out of its way and enjoy the show.